Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay starting up. Today, we'll be talking about um, methods of motivating society for social action. So today, we'll be talking about methods of motivating society for social action. So when try to approach this topic, but before we start talking about this topic, let's last time we talked about some typical problems of rural development and rural areas. And we'll be kicking off from there today. The expectation today is that at the end of today's session, everyone should be able to discuss the concept social action. Everyone should be able to explain the meaning of community development. Everyone should be able to list and discuss the methods of motivating society for social action. And everyone should be able to uh, explain the meaning of community modernization and identify and probably discuss the approaches to community modernization. Okay. Um, Welcome again. So I look forward to having a very um, interesting time with you. It's always a great time facilitating with you because the interaction is quite interesting. All right, let's go straight to it. As a way of introduction, motivation is very important in any activity. Different task in life requires different method of motivation. Similarly, different individuals require different methods to get them motivated. All right. All right. So this has to do with individual differences and the nature of task on ground. We'll be discussing the various methods used in motivating society for social actions through community development today. So, what's the meaning of social actions? Authors have defined it in several ways. So, let's take one of the definitions and see how it pans out. Like sociologists use the term social action to refer to the organized collective activities to bring about or resist fundamental change in an existing group or society. Another author says social action or recognizes the special importance of social actions when they are defined as collective enterprises to establish a new order of life. In many nations, including Nigeria, where we are right now, social actions have had a dramatic impact on the course of history and the evolution of social structures. Now, when we say social action, it simply means an organized collective action, meaning that a lot of people are involved in this. A collection of people are involved in social action. Their involvement, that collective activity which they are involved in, is targeted at bringing about a fundamental change in an existing group or an existing societal structure. So it's important we understand it. So collective enterprise to establish a new order of life. Okay, now consider the action of specific groups like the Nigerian Labour Congress in recent time concerning the introduction of the new minimum wage. Consider the action of the trade unions. Consider the action of the group describing themselves as Bring Back Our Girls group during the Goodluck Jonathan regime when some couple of girls were kidnapped in the north. Then another movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta meant these are collective groups that work in collectives. and they had their target. Members of each social action stepped outside traditional channels for bringing about social change, yet had a noticeable influence on public policy. Equally, dramatic collective efforts in Eastern Europe helped to topple communist regime in a largely peaceful manner in nations that many observers had thought were immune to such social changes in the past. Okay, now, even when they are unsuccessful, that is, the social groups, collective actions are unsuccessful, social action contributes to the formation of public opinion. That is, that their action, that's collective action that they pushed to establish something. Maybe when they didn't even succeed, they still achieved something in the interim, and that is uh, changing public opinion. Moreover, functionalists view social movement as training ground for leaders of political establishment. Such heads of states like Cuba, which is Fidel Castro, and Nelson Mandela for South Africa, came to power after serving as leaders of revolutionary movement. How and why do social movements emerge? This is another critical question we have to talk about. How and why do social movements emerge? Obviously, people are often discontented with the way things are going. There's this dissatisfaction among people. But what causes them to organize at a particular moment in a collective effort to effect change, we'll just talk about it a bit. Sociologists rely on two explanations for why people mobilize: the relative deprivation and resource mobilization approach. These are the two approaches the sociologists have highlighted that motivate people to mobilize: the relative deprivation and social mobilization approach. Okay, now, what's the meaning of community development? Because we are talking of social action in order to bring about community development and all that. Now, the United Nations define community development as a process which the efforts of people themselves are united with those of the government authorities to improve the economic, social, and cultural conditions of a community, to integrate them or integrate those communities into the lives of the nation and to enable them contribute fully to national progress. So there's a lot of integration here. There's a lot of processes of people and effort and government to get this to happen. Now, community development can also be defined as a process of social action in which people of a community organize themselves for the identification of their needs, planning and taking action to meet those needs with maximum reliance on their own initiative and resources, supplemented by assistance in any form from government and non-governmental organizations. So you see there are two approaches to this definition. An approach where the effort of the people is first to push for the development of their community through their own resources, and an effort from outside the community where government comes in, non-governmental organization can come in to assist. Now, community development is seen as the ability of people to use their traditional institutions and collect creativity to initiate self-help projects aimed at responding positively to the problems of their community. Although the responsibility of initiating such project lies with the members of the community, they do not necessarily have to conclude them alone. So they eventually have to call in outside help to help. So the idea is that in initiating the project, a particular community must have indicated its most or identified its most pressing and generally defined acknowledged need. All right. This is a democratic, people-centered model of community development, which tries to satisfy the basic needs of the people. As seen from these definitions that we have just highlighted, community development, therefore, is defined from different perspectives. Whatever the definitions is, however, community development involves a balanced social and economic development with emphasis on the equitable distribution of resources as well as creation of benefits. Community development involves a concerted effort of the people, all right, of the people of a given community, the government, non-government organization, towards uplifting the standard of the people in a particular area. In other words, any effort made to ensure advancement of any community is termed community development. Such advancement could be social, economic, political, or cultural. All right. Now, although the concept and definition of community development could vary according to disciplines and orientation, some common elements in the definitions summarized as follows. One, community development is a process. Take note of the word process. It's not an act. It's a process involving joint effort and different approaches. Two, it can be carried out by governmental agencies, non-governmental agencies, National Youth Service Corps, philanthropists, community members, and so on and so forth. It involves the use of the people's initiative and resources. Number four, assistance can also be obtained from outside the community area for community development. And then number five, it aims at improving the living condition of the people. This could be socially, economically, politically, culturally, and religiously. Okay. Now, methods of motivating society for social actions through community development. Let's highlight some of these methods. There are different methods of motivating society for social action through community development. So let's highlight some of them. The first is enlightenment campaign. The second is reward systems. The third is persuasive talks. The fourth is involvement of community members in decision-making process. And number five is the use of bottom-top approach in determining development projects. Number six is involvement of local community in spontaneous community development activities. Number seven is placing emphasis on community felt needs. Now, these seven actions, these seven methods are quite important in motivating society for social action through community development. They're easy to understand, of course. Like the first one now, enlightenment campaign. That is, you start mobilizing people by telling them the need for community development, the need for coming together to bring about these. You're enlightening them, telling them previous actions that others have done and why it is necessary at this time. Then the second is reward system. You emphasize to the people through this enlightenment what the reward will be. Then number three is the persuasive talk. You start telling them, persuading them that they can do it. The other generation did it, look what's the benefit. But we can persuade themselves that they can do this. And then number four is involvement of community members in decision-making process. And then you try to use the bottom-top approach, which is always good in community development and rural development. That is getting information from people down in the community, then you take it up to people up for implementation. And then you involve the people in the village, that is local community, being involved in spontaneous community development. That's get them involved. And then you place emphasis on their need when you get them involved. Don't start involving them in things they did not choose. And then you can motivate the community for community development. Okay, now let's highlight some of the approaches to community modernization. Evidently, there are different approaches to community modernization. Of course, modernization here was derived from the word modern, all right? That is trying to bring about modern society. So, approaches to community modernization. Excuse me. Okay. The approaches to community modernization depends on the socioeconomic approach in a given community. So there are different approaches, but it all depends on how a community goes about it. We'll be taking a broader look at the concept of community modernization and the various approaches to community modernization as suggested by different experts in the field. So let's start with the meaning of community modernization first. Community modernization is synonymous with the meaning of community development. So some people may say bringing about community development is also the same thing with community modernization. Of course, you can also relate with the fact that as you try to modernize a society, you are bringing about development of such society. So consequently, community modernization, according to Harambos and Holborn, 2004, describes it uh, as the process of social action in which people people of the community organize themselves for the identification of their needs, planning and taking action to meet those needs with maximum reliance on their own initiative and resources, supplemented with assistance in any form from government and non-governmental organization. You can see this definition is similar with community development we just defined earlier. All right. Now, it is the community modernization. It is the ability of the people to use their traditional institutions and creativity to initiate self-help projects aimed at responding positively to the problems of their environment. Although the onus of for initiating such project lies with the members of the society or the community, they do not necessarily have to be concluded or have to conclude them alone. Now, the idea is that in initiating the project, a particular community must have identified its most pressing and generally acknowledged needs. This is a democratic, people-centered approach or model of community development or modernization, which tries to satisfy the basic needs of the people. Now, what are the approaches to this modernization we are talking about as it concerns a community? The first is social development approach. And then we have community work group approach. Then we have the idealist approach. We have the agricultural extension approach. And these are the four approaches to community modernization. All right. Now, let's explain them a bit as we begin to round up. Now, the social development approach, what is it talking about? This approach aims at improving the personal quality of the individuals in the community and not material possessions. All right. Just the personal quality of the individuals in the community. You see that? Not material possessions. It involves the integration of social and economic development programs along with mass literacy. Now, look at the next approach, community work group approach. This approach places emphasis on group social actions, which has more impact on community than individual actions. So this approach is focusing on groups instead of individuals. The first one is talking about personality or personal quality of the individual in the community. Now, the second one is focusing on groups. Now, the third, what is it saying? Idealistic approach. What is it saying? This approach focuses on mobilizing the youths and the young ones to participate in group social action, ultimately making them part of the community plan to develop or modernize the society. Now, the fourth, which is the agricultural extension approach. This approach utilizes educational and motivational procedures to achieve rural development transformation from traditional to more productive economy. The idea is to educate the rural people on their potentials, on their capabilities to bring about transforming their community and modernizing it. So these are the four approaches. Now, rural communities in Nigeria, how are they modernized? Rural community modernization in Nigeria utilizes the following approaches. The first is the sector approach, which addresses addresses either the whole sector of the country, such as agriculture, education, and all that, the whole sector, or a few projects within such sector. So we call it the sector approach. Now, number two, the coordinated approach, which addresses the economic development of all sectors within a given area. Let me take it again because the first one, I seem to have modeled it up with the second one. The first approach, which is the sector approach, addresses a whole sector at a time. That is, maybe take It's agricultural sector at the time, or a few projects within that sector. Now, the second one is a coordinated approach, which addresses to the economic development of all the sectors within a given area. And then the third one is the participatory approach, which is designed by the residents first in selected local economic and social goals, and then in pursuing them with some government aids. Recent attention is focused on this particular kind of approach, that is the participatory approach. Now, other scholars like Ekong and Fellaini enumerates approaches to community modernization to include rural-urban interactions, intersectoral zonal coordination, and the packaged approach. Okay, now community modernization as using rural-urban interaction. This approach focuses on planning of rural development along with and within the framework of all national development plans and provisions. Some of you will remember this approach. We talked about it earlier for rural development in integrating in the overall agricultural development. So the plan is to integrate the rural development plan in the overall national development plan. All right, it has its criticism. Now, this other approach is the intersectoral or zonal coordination approach. This involves the coordination of maybe formerly existing isolated sectoral and zonal development programs. It assumes that all sectors or zones zonal rural development programs are well conceived and that effective coordination would make them attain rural development goals. However, programs under this arrangement have been so narrow and fail to consider restructuring of social, economic, and political systems as essential steps towards attaining meaningful integration and narrowing rural-urban gaps. This activity hardly make impact on lives of rural people in the final analysis. And the last one is the package approach. This approach is founded on the diffusionist theory of development, in which innovations developed from outside a particular community are brought to the rural dwellers by a presumed beneficent and altruistic change agency. Virtually all rural development programs in the country adopted this model. Most of them were developed outside somewhere and brought into Nigeria and implemented. For example, the farm settlement scheme of the defunct Western region and the Operation Feed the Nation, the National Accelerated Food Production Program. These were all programs that were developed somewhere and brought in and implemented in Nigeria. All right. However, it is disappointing to observe that all those programs have not resulted in meaningful rural development as at the time of estimation. Okay, that's about it for today. We thank you all for showing up for today's session. So let's take our questions. Let's open up our lines. Those that want to speak, unmute yourself, and then we'll take questions and discuss generally what the course is about. So, okay, now is the time to unmute yourself if you're unmuted. For those that want to speak, or not everybody, because I know some of you are listening to me from odd places, so there's a lot of noise at the background. So unmute yourself when you have to speak. Okay. Any question?
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So I just want to understand what is the difference between community development and community modernization.
Good. You know, when I started explaining it, I said something. I said most sociologists have mixed them together. In fact, they are actually they're actually used interchangeably, because if you look at it fundamentally, you realize that when you try to modernize a society, you end up developing the society. And if you look at those actions, those experts, those activists that are going to bring about the modernization, you find out that they are members of that society, and there are also people from outside the society, just like development also happens. So you see that they are similar in so many ways, just that from our text, you realize that the differences are not just really much at all. So you see that the approaches to modernization is the same approach you take to community development. So they are quite synonymous. If you are following, if you have been following us, of course, you realize that when we defined the approaches for community development sometime in the past, we mentioned these three approaches again, just as we are mentioning today to community modernization. And that's what you will find in our course material. I know that generally they can be or confused or related, interchangeable, like we speak in English, but there may be unique differences in them. In that community development is broader, and community modernization may not be as broad as community development, because modernization is just to take, maybe it could even be a modern society being taken to a next level, but community development can take a rural or let's call it Asian society and bring them to a modern position. So you see that community development goes beyond just modernization. You can be developing a modern society, because every single time there is something to develop in every society. Is it economic? Is it social? Is it moral? Something can be developed or is possibly um, uh, may need development in any given society. So that is my take on that.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Any other question? So how are we preparing for our exams? Some people are coming for the first time today. If you're coming for the first time today, always note that we have been here for a while, and all our facilitation videos are on your portal. Once you log in, you see the recordings in the cloud, and then you can watch them. All right. So if you're coming for the first time, do well to do that. Then another thing again you should do is this. The exam is fast approaching, so it's important that you get your acts together. There are parts of this facilitation session we may not have mentioned anything about. Please take your materials, your lecture materials, and read them. I always try to advise students on this course because we have done this for a long time, and in line with the philosophy of our school, every student has one course material to use for the course, and questions and answers are set from that course material. So focus on it, because that's where the question and answers will come from. Yes, you may have your own ideas. Please write what the course material gave to you first before you expand to other things you may know. That approach will help you get your scores. And besides just getting the scores, this thing we do here is so that we foster improve the understanding for students, not just to pass exam, but to become better citizens of the community. For example, tomorrow you may become a social activist. You may become a rural development agency propagator. And we're expecting that some of the approaches we have discussed here, some of the advantages, some of the challenges we have highlighted in these classes will stir you up when you want to go into the field to bring about any particular kind of development or implementation or involving the rural people. These approaches, this discussion is not just to just pass an exam, it's to change you to become an agent of change when you approach the rural area to implement development. Whether you're in public administration, cooperative and rural development, entrepreneurship, business admin, whichever department you are coming from, you always have a time you will handshake with the rural people. You will handshake with policymakers. You will handshake with contractors that are going to head in this direction. We want you to be a ambassador to take this learning down to the rural place and implement them accordingly. All right. Since we don't have questions, we may start calling it a day today. Okay. I wish you luck and in your forthcoming exams. I hope we can still meet again. But if we don't, I wish you luck in your exams. And please don't disappoint me. Most students that take this course pass it very well. Like I've said earlier, this set will not be an exception. For those that are not even in this class and are coming in to watch this video, don't disappoint me. This course is one of the courses they score the highest. So do me proud again this semester. Thank you for joining and see you in our next session, God willing. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sir.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Okay. All right. Let me take your question quickly before I've almost turned this thing off. All right, ask your question quickly.
Sir. Okay, so I wanted to ask, I did on BUS 325.
I didn't get the question, please.
Because I saw that there are instructional video for sociology of entrepreneurship, which you did too. Do you also do tutorials on human resource management?
No, have not facilitated on human resource manager yet. If I happen to be giving such course, I will create videos for that too. For now, the courses you see on my page are the courses that I've been given to do. That should be that. Are you having challenges with that course?
Yes, sir, I am.
It's rather short now to do a video for that, but what I can tell you is take your course material and read it through and through. Okay, the exams is not far off anymore, so you may not have enough time to get a video to watch. Probably your work is difficult to get you to read, but you have to make that effort. There's not enough time now to really focus you by getting you a video. The videos are supposed to be something you watch over a length of time, but we don't have time. We're in May and our exams is just by the corner here. So that's my candid and honest advice concerning that.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other question, please? Any other person with questions? Okay, so we can call it a day today. All right, thank you guys for joining. For those that have not subscribed, we will appreciate if you subscribe to my channel, and then you can share some of the things that are impactful to you there with others. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sir.